Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a requested Duping the Vibes video. I am so happy you guys enjoy those videos as much as I enjoy making them, and actually under one of them I had a friend who asked for me to dupe the vibes of the Melt Cosmetics She's in Parties palette. The most summery palette of them all, you would call it. No. I was actually quite surprised with the release of the palette and taken aback. I didn't expect it. There weren't many spoilers. It was just bam, here it is. It's gonna release in 3 days. Happy She's in Parties palette. I was quite surprised. Never really tempted to buy it actually, but because you guys wanted to see it, or one of you wanted to see it, I thought I'd pop on here and take a look into my single eyeshadow collection and see what I can do to dupe the She's in Parties palette. Again, in these videos, I don't own the palette, so I go off of different swatches that I find online. In this case, it was a little bit easier because half of the palette is actually shades that were already in the She's in Parties stack by Melt. Melt is in the process of actually converting all of their, or some of their stacks to palettes. So they've done that with Radioactive, they've done that with Rust, and now with She's in Parties. And I like the idea. I like these much better. I like palettes much better than the stacks. I always found the stacks very expensive, quite cumbersome and unhandy packaging. So I'm happy they're doing palettes that are thinner. There's less product, but I mean, who finishes eyeshadows these days anyways? This one definitely flew under my radar. I didn't look at the stack much when it released, and also not this palette. One big help for this Duping the Vibes was Angela Mary Tanner's post on the stack from a while ago. And I actually had most of those shadows, if not all of those shadows that she duped, and showed the comparison of the shades. I'll pop it up here on the screen. I think she needs, credit is due where credit is due. And I went off of those that I have and found a few different shades that also are okay, and yeah, duped the She's in Parties palette. And here it is. Here it is. It is an 8 eyeshadow palette, so it's a bit smaller, and it's the same size of these two compared to Gemini, which is much bigger, for example. Whereas Smoke Sessions and Radioactive are smaller and have 8 pans. Let's get started immediately, and the first shade in the palette is a duochrome peach, maybe with a little bit of a light pink undertone, and one of the possible dupes is I'm Peachless by Makeup Geek, and this one here is unfortunately discontinued for now. Makeup Geek actually just came out with a ton of new pastel shades, which I'm super excited for, but no duochromes yet. I guess they're working on them. But here is I'm Peachless, and you can see it is a very transparent base with a strong peach shift. It's not very light. I had it today in the inner corner and I felt like, I need actually something lighter. So something that could work as well for a dupe and that I really love is the shade In the Spotlight by Makeup Geek. This one is in the new pan, but I have it also in the old one. So, yeah, you know I love it, and it's this guy right here. This one instead has a peach base with a more champagne-y or white shimmer on top. It's much brighter, but it still gives you that peach hint that you'd like in that is in this palette. I don't know if you'd like it or not. I find it a bit weird to have such a peach in a very plum heavy eyeshadow palette, but that's okay with me. And that was the shade Skeleton Kiss. That was one of the original shades in there. Then we have another one that's called Strangelove, and it seems to me like a bit of a darker dusty purple base with a pink shimmer on top. I picked out Mr. Sandman by Colourpop because it gave me the same vibes. The difference here is that Mr. Sandman has Yes, a little bit of a dusty purple undertone, but the shift also contains some blue instead of only the pink. So this one right here is a little bit bluer. I have it on the inner third of my lid today, and I think it looks very beautiful. It's one of my favorite shades by Colourpop. It is very shiny and pretty. Next up is in the palette the shade Total Immortal, which is a very light, cool toned pink. It looks like very dusty and almost lavender leaning. And I found Prim and Proper by Makeup Geek of the new eyeshadows, and that is it right here. I think it actually is almost a dead on dupe. Maybe the one in the palette is a little bit lighter, but maybe. There it is. I really like it for blending out this type of shades. And then actually from the old formulation of Makeup Geek, I have Petal Pusher, which I know a lot of people loved when it was out, and it's actually really similar to Prim and Proper. It's pretty much a dead-on dupe. It's like, it changes a little. It's maybe a bit deeper. Petal Pusher is maybe a bit deeper. Yeah. So these two could be a good alternative for the shade in the palette. And it's nice that they put in such a light transition shade. I think it helps to smoke out looks very easily. Then we have another shade that was already in the stack called Last Caress, and I pulled out the shade Vintage from Makeup Geek. It's a lot of Makeup Geek in here, I'm sorry, but that's a big part of my single eyeshadow collection. And this one exists both in the new formulation and in the old formulation. And it is a, lavender brown, I want to call it. It's almost gray. It's very desaturated, but it's very, very, I don't know, elegant. It's almost a taupe. Can you call it a taupe? Something like that. It's a very pretty shade, and it's very, very similar to the one in the stack and in the palette. And so far, I think it's quite a cohesive story, isn't it? Next up is the namesake of the palette. It's the shade She's in Parties, and depending on where you look at the swatches, it will look more or less plummy purple, and I have two options for you here. What I think is the closest to the swatches on the website is the shade Weststar by Colourpop. This has a hint of warmth in it, but it's still quite a burgundy type of shade, and I think this is a quite close alternative to the shade She's in Parties. I'm going off of the website now for a few of these shades. And another option is Daphne number 2 by Nabla. And this one instead is a little bit more plummy of a shade. And it's actually comes from my declutter pile because I don't use it. And I'm happy to give it to someone else who will, because I would always prefer Weststar or something warmer rather than something more purple. Don't ask me why, it's just what I like to wear. And you have these two options depending, I don't know exactly which one is the best. Dupe in person, because I don't have the palette, but these are two good options. The next shade is Sleepwalk, which is slightly darker than She's in Parties, and I picked Showtime by Makeup Geek. And this is a dark burgundy shimmer with a bit of a silver sparkle, but you don't really see the silver sparkle too much. And you see that it's not that different right here. But also in the palette, I don't get how different this actually is. So these are the shades there. Then we move on to the deepest matte in the palette, that's called Meanstreak. And I have again two options. Again, just like the last Duping the Vibes for the bronze palette, I'm pulling out Colourpop Razy. I am aware that this is not available anymore, but it's quite a unique color in my collection. It's this very deep, plummy, browny, plummy purple matte. and it fits in a lot of comparisons right now. Similar is Offline by the Dreamy 2 in Nabla Cosmetics Dreamy 2 palette. And Razy is a, I think, very, very close dupe to this shade. If not, it's even a bit too purple leaning. And if that is the case in real life, then I have another option for you, which is more brown, which is Give Me the Dirt by Makeup Geek. And here it is. You can see that it is a bit darker and it is a little bit more brown. Another option would be probably Aphrodite by Makeup Geek in the old formulation, but that was also, I think, not a limited edition, but you cannot get it anymore. So that's why I thought of pulling out something that you can buy if you're interested, and it's a very nice deep brown, but that leans to the plum. And then the final shade is the darkest, and it's a shimmer, and I really don't have anything like it because it's a bit darker than Showtime. I don't have anything that goes darker than that in the same burgundy family. So I picked two deep purple shimmers. One is from the Morphe 35M shade. It's called Indie Glow Kween, and it is a shimmery purple, but it's not super cool tone, so it could fit in here. I think it would be good enough, but you can see that in the tone of purple it doesn't really fit with the rest, so this could be a bit off. Another option would be Makeup Geek Drama Queen, but this is also like a very deep shade with a cooler toned shimmer on it, which is the shade right here. So I don't actually have, oh, my hands are dirty. I don't actually have a dupe for that shade. I think it's similar what I put up, but not exactly a perfect dupe. And now that you can see all the swatches together, but probably you would have seen it in the palette itself, this is not a purple palette, and people got upset about it because they were somehow under the impression that this would be a purple palette, but this is much more of a, yeah, burgundy, the brand calls it itself. It's more plummy to me than burgundy, and yeah, I wouldn't purchase it because these are not shades that I use a lot, especially the gray leaning side of it is also like this eye makeup. It's not something I find flatters me as much as, for example, the one I showed you with the bronze palette by Natasha Denona. That is much more my jam, looks better on me than something that has some gray in it. So it's not for me, but I think that for a beginner in color, this is a beautiful smoky neutral, slightly cool toned eyeshadow palette. I actually quite like it. I think they did a good job. Maybe too many of these very dark shimmers. Like there's 3 dark shimmer, 1 medium and 2 dark shimmers. I don't think that was necessary. They could have expanded a little bit on the lighter side of the palette, but it is choices. Melt Cosmetics always does very smoky palettes. So I'm not upset about it, but I'm not gonna buy it. I hope this Duping the Vibes video helped you if you were tempted to buy it, and maybe you can find some shades in your collection that are similar and that could substitute buying the palette. You will find the names of all of the shades in the description box below as usual. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't hesitate to ask me for Duping the Vibes video. I'm loving doing these, so I'm very happy to do so. And I hope you'll subscribe to stay and see what comes next. And I'll see you in that next video. Bye guys.